Hold on.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to give it a few seconds for folks to join us.
Pat, when it's time for me to testify, I cannot unmute myself. So please, because my toolbar is not working, so please put a pop-up that asks me to unmute when
Okay.
you're calling me. Thank you.
Will do. Thanks, Don.
Hello.
All
And you
right.
have my word. What I was going to say
Hello.
about that person was nothing impersonal, but only asking his opinion about a settlement breach.
I see. Thanks, Don. All right,
You're
folks,
welcome.
we are going to get started. Thank you for coming today. It is good to see you all. Next slide, please. So this meeting will be recorded. The MBTA may choose to retain and distribute the video, still images, audio, and/or transcript. By continuing attendance with this virtual public meeting, you consent to participate in a recorded event. If you're not comfortable being recorded, please turn off your camera and keep your microphone muted, or you may choose to excuse yourself from the meeting. Other important notes: whether you are being recorded or not, your microphone and webcam are automatically disabled upon entering the meeting. The meeting will be open to questions and answers at the end of the formal presentations. And please take time to respond to our survey. Your feedback is important. Next slide. I'm going to quickly go through the agenda for tonight. We'll begin with the welcome and introductions, followed by Zoom directions, followed by the RTAG co-chair update, followed by system-wide accessibility updates given by Jennifer Ross, the Deputy Director of Customer Engagement, followed by the presentation from South Coast Rail given by Jean Fox. Then we will have the system-wide accessibility feedback session, followed by the ride updates given by Michelle Styler, the Chief of Paratransit Services, followed by the ride feedback session, and then we'll have closing remarks. Next slide. Zoom directions regarding our ASL interpreters. Tonight, our ASL interpreters are Samara Patterson and Amy Constable. To view their video, find the interpreter's video in the gallery. In the top right corner of the interpreter's video, click the ellipses, then click the pin video option. This will keep the interpreter's video on your screen, and they will also be spotlighting themselves as well. Next slide. Zoom directions regarding cart captioning. Our cart captioner tonight is Denise Gracia. To start viewing closed captioning, click closed caption with the CC icon. A tip is to click and drag the closed captioning to move its positioning in the meeting window. To adjust the caption size, click the upward arrow next to start video / stop video. Click video settings and then accessibility, and move the slider to adjust the caption size. Next slide. Zoom directions for using the chat for technical questions. If you have a technical question about Zoom or the features of the meeting, please use the chat function and we will attempt to troubleshoot your problem and get back to you. Next slide. So now it is time for our RTAG update, and I'm going to hand it over to Nora Nagel, our RTAG co-chair.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Rider Transportation Access Group, also known as RTAG. As many of you know, this is a community-based group advising the MBTA on transportation matters that impact people with disabilities and older adults. As we discussed at our last meeting, parked cars in bus stops and bus lanes aren't just an inconvenience for buses. They pose significant safety risks for passengers, especially those with disabilities. Individuals who are blind or low vision may have to step off the bus into the middle of the street, putting them in danger of collisions with cars or in particular cyclists. For individuals using wheelchairs or other mobility devices, blocked bus stops can prevent wheelchair ramps from deploying properly and reaching the curb safely. It makes getting off and on the bus very difficult and potentially unsafe. If buses stop at undesignated locations, riders often encounter obstacles like tree roots, lampposts, mailboxes, bike racks, and other things that are unsuitable for their mobility devices or for them to get safely onto the sidewalk. Unfortunately, as we all know, municipalities don't have the resources to enforce these bus stop and bus lane violations effectively without some assistance. And the assistance we're thinking about is the use of camera technology. And that's why RTAG is advocating for the passage of Senate Bill 2600, which proposes automated enforcement for illegally parked cars in bus lanes and stops for the MBTA and RTA buses. The legislation calls for the installation of cameras on transit buses and at bus stops statewide. The cameras would capture photos and/or short video clips of parked cars, which would then undergo human review. Upon verification of a violation, drivers would receive fines of up to $125 for parking in a bus lane and up to $100 for parking at a bus stop. RTAG urges all members to voice their support for this legislation to their state senator and to the chair of Senate Ways and Means. His name is Senator Mike Rodriguez, and his phone number is 617-722-1114. And that will be in, if somebody could put that in the chat, that would be great. Recently, the Boston Globe interviewed Cassandra Xavier and Tom Gilbert, members of the RTAG Executive Board, discussing their transportation experiences, particularly concerning encounters with blocked bus stops and lanes. And we're going to put the link to that article in the chat as well. On another matter, RTAG acknowledges the efforts made by the MBTA to ensure accessibility for people with disabilities during long-term diversions. However, the disability community still faces challenges when using third-party shuttles during these diversions. There's a pressing need to utilize these shuttles due to the capacity constraints of in-house buses. But RTAG continues to advocate for financial penalties for specific violations, such as denials of service to customers with disabilities or failing to make stop or route announcements. We also call for the increased use of ADA accessible vehicles, comprehensive accessibility training for contracted bus operators, and thorough evaluations of shuttle bus stops and paths of travel by system-wide accessibility. RTAG members discuss these issues along with bike lanes and orange line gaps at the MBTA board meeting this morning. If you encounter any of these problems, please reach out to RTAG and let us know. Thanks very much, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Nora. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Ross, the Deputy Director of Customer Engagement, to give the updates for system-wide accessibility at the MBTA.
Thanks very much, Kat, and thank you to all who joined today. Next slide, Glinda. So the Capital Investment Plan, CIP, for FY 25 through 29. The proposed FY 21 through 29 was released for public comment today, April 25th, 2024, and can be found at mbta.com/CIP. It will be further refined before submitted to the MBTA Board of Directors on June 20th, 2024, and will go into effect in July 2024. If you'd like to comment or hear more about the plan, there's going to be 2 public meetings. The first one is Thursday, May 2nd, 2024 at 6:30, State Transportation Building, 10 Park Plaza, that is the boardroom in Boston. The second meeting will be on Tuesday, May 7th, 2024, and that'll be at 6:30 p.m. as well. That'll be a virtual public meeting, and details are available at mbta.com/events. Comments can also be submitted between April 25th and May 16th by filling out our online comment tool available at mbta.com/CIP. You can send an email to cipengagement@mbta.com, or you can mail a letter, snail mail, to MBTA Capital Investment Plan, care of MBTA General Manager, 10 Park Plaza, Suite 3830, Boston, Mass. 02116. Next slide. So I want to tell you about some accessibility related projects that are covered in the capital investment plan. First one is accessible passenger facilities. So the MBTA is proposing to fully fund through construction major accessibility upgrades at the following inaccessible stations: Waban, Beaconsfield, Elliott, Chestnut Hill, and Newton Highlands. Also, Symphony Station on the Green Line. On the commuter rail, Winchester Center, North Wilmington, and Natick Center. Redundant and modernized elevators. The MBTA also proposes funding for new and modernized elevators for key locations, including Downtown Crossing, which will be the first ever accessible connection between the red and orange lines, Central Square, Jackson Square, and Forest Hills. And we have a lovely photo here of a rendering of the new Symphony Station. So the next slide, additional accessibility related projects, bus and ferry accessibility improvements. The authority proposes to continue funding accessibility improvements at priority bus stops in according to the Plan for Accessible Transit Infrastructure, otherwise known as PATI. Additional funds are also allocated for infrastructure improvements for the ferry system, which includes a range of accessibility improvements. Next slide. The Daniels Feingold plaintiffs were honored with the Tom Hopkins Disability Access Award. For the past several years, the Massachusetts Office on Disability, MOD, has awarded a Thomas P. Hopkins Disability Award, and this award goes to an advocate or group of advocates who have improved accessibility and quality of life for people with disabilities in Massachusetts through innovative advocacy with a systemic impact. The award is named for the late Tom Hopkins, a fierce disability advocate and wheelchair user who sued the town of Spencer to ensure the town's compliance of architectural access standards with the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA. His advocacy and later leadership on the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, MAAB, led to significant accessibility improvements in Spencer and beyond. On April 10th, 2024, MOD honored the Daniels Feingold Plaintiff Group, along with the Boston Center for Independent Living and Greater Boston's Legal Services with the Tom Hopkins Award. And there's a nice photo of the plaintiffs with folks from BCIL, GBLS, and SWA. Next slide. MBTA board presentation on accessibility at the T. Today, Assistant General Manager of System-Wide Accessibility, Laura Brelsford, presented to the MBTA Board of Directors. Laura presented an overview of the history of the settlements, the progress we've made over the past 2 decades, and the future of accessibility initiatives. You can view the video, and I am not going to read out the whole URL because it's very long, but Lisa is going to pop it in the chat for you guys if you'd like to watch it. Next slide. To learn more, visit our website, mbta.com/accessibility. You can view our complete initiatives report at mbta.com/accessibility initiatives. You can sign up for SWA newsletters, mbta.com/SWA sign up. Upcoming meetings we'd like to tell you about. The next RTAG general meeting will be May 23rd, 2024, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Is that correct, Kat, on the time?
It will actually be an evening meeting, 5:30 to 7:30.
Thanks for the clarification. 5:30 to 7:30, and you can find that on mbta.com/events. Our semi-annual settlement update meeting with Judge King will be June 26th, 5:30 to 7:30. If you have complaints, questions, commendations, or suggestions, you can file them by calling 617-222-3200 or go to mbta.com and click on support. Finally, you can tweet at MBTA. Now, I'd like to introduce Jean Fox to speak about South Coast Rail Safety First. Jean, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. If we could go to the first slide. So we're actually very honored to be here. We are working very diligently to get our project running. There has not been commuter rail to New Bedford and Fall River in over 60 years. So this is a very new service. Something the region has sought for many, many, many years. And now we are quite close to seeing revenue service happen with service between South Station and the gateway cities of Taunton, Fall River, and New Bedford. Next slide, please. So our messaging has been very consistent. If you see a train, please think safety first. As I mentioned, trains were very common back in the day. And for the first time in over 60 years, they will be operating in the region again. With the return of trains, it is imperative that everyone stay safe around the railroad tracks and the trains. The photo is of our station in Freetown. Next slide, please. So the project entails the building of 6 commuter rail stations and 2 layover facilities. We are extending the Middleborough line that currently exists down to the cities of Taunton, Fall River, and New Bedford. Next slide, please. So how are things changing in the region? Freight has been active forever in the region, and only recently have the speeds on freight trains in certain areas increased to 25 miles per hour. In the past, you wouldn't see a freight train going faster than 10 miles per hour. and they're sporadic. They aren't daily. The Fall River line runs Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The New Bedford freight is typically Thursday and Tuesday, Thursday. CSX does operate 5 days a week, but only a couple of times a day. So this is a very different situation we're going to be seeing in the region with commuter rail trains on a schedule. Certainly with test trains coming, the high speeds of up to 79 miles per hour will be a game changer for people in the region. That's why we are aggressively messaging to everyone in the region to please understand the basics of railroad safety, and accessibility is clearly one of them. Next slide, please. What to do and not to do around the tracks. And believe it or not, for folks in our region, this is new information. We have had people walking their dog on the tracks, riding their bikes on the tracks, taking a shortcut. We tell them never walk on or next to the tracks. It is very dangerous. Please don't walk the dog, don't run, don't hunt. Please don't drive your ATV on the tracks. If you're on an ATV, you won't hear a train. Remember, railroad tracks are private property, so being on them is not only dangerous, but it is illegal. And we strongly urge people to never use the tracks as a shortcut to get from point A to point B. Always, always, always stay alert when you are around railroad tracks. Next slide, please. So more track safety rules. When you see tracks, think train. Trains can come at any time, on any track, and in any direction. You won't always hear the trains coming. They're much more quiet than you think, and they're certainly closer than they appear. They can't stop, they can't swerve. If a train is traveling at about 55 miles per hour, it can take a full mile or more to stop that train. We also point out to people that at every grade crossing, there's a blue sign. If you see a problem, look for the blue sign at the crossing to report any emergency. If you do not see a blue sign, call 911. Next slide, please. So train safety basics. Remember, cross train tracks only at designated pedestrian or railroad crossings. Obey all warning signs and signals posted there, and pay attention when you're around trains or tracks. Next slide, please. All of our stations feature accessible routes to all elements. We have high-level, full-length platforms, roughly 800 feet long. We have reduced the vehicle gaps between the platform and the coaches. The overhead platform canopy is around 150 feet and covers platform ramps. Auditory and visual announcements are available at all of our stations, and each station has accessible parking spaces. The yellow tactile warning strips along the length of every platform are standard throughout the MBTA. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here are some examples of station features. The first photograph on the left is the Fall River Depot Station, and it's in a major downtown area. So a lot of folks will be getting to the station by bus, and the bus will drop them off at a corner. We have created a nice set of ramp with and platform with covering and warning strips are on the side. But this is an unusual ramp that gets people from the bus stop, basically from the bus stop up to the platform. And you'll see in the top center, we show one of the accessible parking places with an EV charging station. The tactile warning strip, as I mentioned, below, and then we also have the auditory and visual signage. And then we show on the right, arrival at South Station in Boston. Next slide, please. So the East Taunton station is our most complex station. It is a center island platform station, and its design was fully vetted with system-wide accessibility. It has the elevators, it has bridges, it has ramps, and it has stairs. It's the one station that still has a bit of work to go on it, but we're moving along on it quite well. Our ramps and elevators provide the necessary redundancy for people to get in and out of the station safely.
No, I have to go. I have another meeting to go.
No worries.
Okay.
Thanks, Jarrett.
Thank you. The elevator cab size and features such as transparency and dimensions comply with all code requirements. And each station name or stop name and elevator buttons they'll be provided in Braille. Next slide, please. We have focused heavily on safety for all the reasons I've already mentioned, but we also developed a series of videos. We have 3 that are age appropriate for school age children, and 1 for the general public. We work very extensively with local police and fire departments, and we're working with schools. We work closely as well with the homeless coalitions in the cities. So we have a whole library of safety materials that we have delivered and will continue to deliver to communities and organizations in multiple languages. If any of you are interested in those materials, please feel free to reach out to us. And yes, you can, Shana put in the chat, you can actually view one of the videos. They are short. They will not win an Academy Award, but they absolutely deliver the message. Next slide, please. So what's coming to keep you safe? We ask everyone to watch for more information on train safety coming soon in the schools, the libraries, city and town halls, and more. And we ask people wherever we go to share track safety basics with families. We have found talking to children, they want to tell their families about track safety basics. And let us know, please let us know if you have suggestions, questions, or you'd like our team to present to your school or your group. Please remember, think safety first. Next slide. You can follow us at mass.gov/South Coast Rail, and you can certainly send us comments, questions, or any suggestions at southcoastrail@dot.state.ma.us. And you'll see on the graphic there that we have flyers to alert people that we're going to be having test trains in our region. They will run randomly initially, building up to 79 miles per hour, but ultimately we'll also have test trains running on a schedule so that we can make sure everything works well, that we land at South Station safely, and that we coexist peacefully with other commuter rail lines that go from various parts of Eastern Mass into Boston. I think that's it. Next slide.
Great. Thank you so much, Jean.
Thank you.
So now we will have our question and comment period for both system-wide accessibility and South Coast Rail. So if you have any questions for either of those groups, please use the Zoom's raise hand feature located at the bottom of the screen. When you raise your hand, it alerts the moderator that you'd like to speak. The moderator will unmute attendees to ask questions in the order that they raise their hands. To speak, you can click reactions and then the raise hand button. You can use the keyboard and click the Alt and Y keys, or if you're calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. So I am going to start with Tom Gilbert. Go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
Hi, I have a question. I remember when they rolled out the new on the old colony system when they went to Brockton. I remember this similar kind of a program that they were rolling out on train and track safety. What has the T and what has, well, I guess Keolis now was different. It was I think it was Amtrak at that time, but I was wondering what the T and Keolis are doing as far as legal liability when people do bad things like that, as far as walk on tracks and wear headphones while walking on the tracks and just do all the wrong things that you were mentioning. But what kind of like I suppose the question I'm trying to ask is how the T and Keolis can be relieved of any liability of what do you call it, malicious intent acts, I guess misusing the system. I suppose I'm trying to say
Bad behavior is what.
bad behavior, basically. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and I will be honest, we have a lot of that down here, only because we haven't had trains for so long. Enforcement is an issue. You have private property that is state-owned property that the local police are reluctant to enforce, but will. The MBTA police are also vigilant, but they will be strapped to try
Right.
to get to our area. So they're establishing relationships with the local constabulary. We do ask, and our freight operator is really good about getting out on the tracks and inspecting. And Keolis does, as they travel up and down the tracks, look for any kind of bad behavior. It's going to take an acclimation period, I'm sure. But you will probably always have people trying to buck the system at some point. Our goal with this program is to let people know that they are in a dangerous situation if they decide to trespass.
Because I guess I was just asking because you hear about these stories about, you know, the son or the daughter walking on the tracks and involving that bad behavior, and then somehow if the family sues Keolis or sues the T and they get a settlement, you know, all that money could be spent on other things like new equipment and even safer campaigns, you know, to be spending the money else on. I guess that's what I'm wondering
So,
about.
No, you make a very valid point, and I will just add that the statistic is dire. Every 3 hours, a person or a vehicle is hit in the United States by a train.
It doesn't
So
make sense. No.
it's not just Massachusetts, and actually, we have a pretty good safety rate. We do a lot with fencing and the best we can with enforcement and oversight. But it is an educational process, and people need to learn to pay attention to that. You're right. The funds that we could potentially spend in a lawsuit certainly would have better uses elsewhere. But when Keolis is at fault, they take the blame. If they have equipment that isn't functioning properly,
Right.
they assume that responsibility. But they also do, I think, an incredibly comprehensive job of making sure things work properly. And it's on all of us to make sure that we do the right thing as well.
You
Right.
did hear about the individual that went around the gate
Yes.
at the Rockport line. He deliberately went around it, and then
Yes.
smack it happened.
A senior citizen decided to dodge the gate. The whole front end of the vehicle was demolished and he survived. That does not normally happen.
No, it doesn't. No.
All right.
No.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Kat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next person we have is Jerry Boyd.
Thanks, Kat, and thanks, Gene, for your presentation. My question is to you. Are all those stations that you mentioned, are they all ready to go? And when do you anticipate, or when does the T anticipate having regular commuter runs going on the line?
That's the most important question in the world. I'm glad you asked it. We just engaged new leadership, and they are currently doing a very deep dive on everything, making sure we've checked every box. And then we enter a very robust period of testing and commissioning. The FRA and the T have upped the ante on testing and commissioning. It's a lot more robust, it's a lot more comprehensive, and it covers everything. Safety certification of every piece of track, every bridge, every culvert, all of that has to happen. And then all of our folks need to be trained on it. Engineers need to understand how to operate the equipment and make sure we land everybody at South Station properly. So I cannot at this time give you a date. However, I will say that we believe in about a month, we will have a much better handle on our schedule for revenue service.
Okay, great. I appreciate you being so transparent and forthcoming. I know that it will be a boom for that region, and particularly for folks with disabilities. You know, it'll be another way for them to get around and get back and forth. So that's great, and thank you for updating us, and we look forward to future updates as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Jennifer Smith Workman, you are next.
Hello, thank you so much. Because I used to take, when I lived in Brockton, I used to take the Middleborough line from Brockton to Boston all the time. But to hear, and my son just moved from Brockton to New Bedford, to hear that there's going to be a line that can get me out there is absolutely fantastic. And my question is, would the fares be astronomically high for common, let's say commuter riders that are taking it like daily for the passes or anything?
So,
Just
I don't set the fares. I do know that there is scrutiny they're undergoing scrutiny right now because we are talking gateway cities.
yes,
Yes, and New Bedford would be a 90-minute ride, but it's much better than the bus.
right.
And I know that the GM, the general manager, is aware of the need in the region. And they've already introduced some new fare packages. So I'm hopeful that it won't break the bank for any of us. The point is to get this train up and running and make it the proper choice for people to ride into and out of Boston.
Excellent, because I will definitely be one of those persons on that ride.
Me too.
Yes,
Thanks, Jennifer.
thank you.
Felipe, you can go ahead and unmute. We can come back to you. I will call on Susie Backstrom next. Oh, go
wait.
ahead.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Gotcha. Thank you. This was very helpful. First time here. I live in Boston now, but I grew up in Stoughton, so I took the Stoughton line in to get to Boston a lot. So I'm familiar, with products. And I think it's very exciting to have the new train station coming up in the future, being half Portuguese and having a lot of kind of Portuguese communities out there. It's very exciting, especially getting certain delicacies. So one of my concerns is having autism is trying to see if like quiet cars will be enforced, or at least at least signage for them, because usually I've known in the past that like the first car generally just has like a sign that says like this is the quiet car, like no cell phones or speakers or anything like that. So I think for the enjoyment of people who've had like a long day at work or just want to get some peace and quiet or whatever it may be, to see if that is implemented as well.
Excellent question, and I will pass it along. I don't know, is the short answer. But I will stress that I know when they first introduced the quiet cars, they were very well received. I don't know what happened with enforcement. I can't address that, but I will stress to the folks that I work with that this is something of great interest and hopefully it will be enforced and signed.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Great question.
And kind of a follow-up question. I know for the weekends, there's the weekend like commuter rail pass, which I think is about $10 or something like that. Would that apply for something so far down towards Fall River and Taunton and New Bedford?
Yes, as long as they don't remove it. So let's
All
just keep
right,
it in place.
perfect.
Great. Thank you so much. Susie Backstrom, you're next, and then we have Joanne, and after that, we will move on to the ride portion.
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering about your safety crew has back when I was driving school bus and learning how to drive motor coaches, we were participants with the Burlington Northern Santa Fe line, train or freight lines that we were working with. What's it called? I'm just trying to think. Operation
Operation
Lifesaver.
Lifesaver. Yes.
Yeah, and so like I just think that it would be really like I had a lot of my children on my school bus trained up in that, and then there was like a sort of a blanket of the community with like all the information and television commercials, radio commercials, and stuff in the print. And I just think that maybe partnering with that group or that operation or whatever would be really helpful for Keolis and the MBTA and the Southern Coast Rail. I think that just might be like something that you guys can look into and create a partnership with. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents here.
Well, it's worth at least a quarter because it's very important. We are partnered with Operation Lifesaver on a lot of levels. In fact, we pursued a grant that allowed us to purchase many of the materials that we're distributing throughout the region. And I'm almost done being trained as an Operation Lifesaver facilitator. So more and more, we find that important. You raised your initial statement about the school buses. I'm aware that there have been a number of places where they've engaged the school buses in that kind of training. And I have worked with First Student down here because they do an awful lot of the bus systems around here, but we do need to do more. And we don't have a lot of time, so we need to get moving on it. But I really appreciate that you brought that up because that's been on my list. So
And
thank you.
school, and once you've talked to kids on the school bus and
Yep.
talked to the schools, that way the kids will stay off the tracks at least, even if the adults are,
Yep.
it just keeps the most little precious people off the tracks,
Thanks,
Yeah.
Susie. All right, next we have Joanne.
Kudos to South Coast Railway. Thank you very much for getting this done. I live in Braintree on the Middleborough, Taunton, and Kingston line. And to be honest with you, right now the Bloom bus service, their rate, for people who are commuting from New Bedford to Boston is onerous. It really costs a lot to take that bus every day. So whatever, like, I can't see Keolis being any worse for wear as far as that's concerned. And considering there's already train service to Providence that I believe is fair. It's reasonable. So I'm so glad that this is happening. I mean, I've been waiting for this for a long time, but it's going to be great, I think, for the region. And you guys know that anybody who knows me knows this, as far as public information is concerned, I'm all for communicating very, very well with new things that are happening in transportation. Please be aware. Anybody who is, well, I don't know, it seems like some people within are from that region. I lived on the Cape for the longest time, and from Taunton south, a lot of the centers for news are in Providence. So that's something to be aware of when you're contacting contacting people regarding public safety, as well as the service itself. And thank you very much again for South Coast Rail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. So I see Dennis has a quick question, and then Dawn has a question. And if anyone has a question after that, feel free to drop it in the chat or reach out to RTAG following the meeting. I just want to be conscious of time. So go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, real quick question. How will the existing Middleborough Lakeville station factor in the schedule? Is that going to continue to be served, or is it getting eliminated, replaced, etc.? That's all I needed to know.
Okay, it's not being eliminated. It'll still be used for Cape Flyer. We have our new Middleborough station is 5/8 of a mile from that station in Lakeville. And the only reason for that is on that line they would have had to make a reverse move if they left the station where it is. And that adds to the commute time because there has to be an engineer and brake check and all of that stuff. That
Yeah,
station in Lakeville is not going away right now.
All right, that's good. Yeah, because it does serve Route 495
Yep.
and a lot of commuters. So, all right, thank you. That was all.
Mhm.
Thanks, Dennis. And last but not least, we have Don. Go ahead.
Well, my name is Don Spill. I'm a very happy but unhappy MBTA customer. A few weeks ago, I was about to board the Route 216 bus from Quincy, Mass. In my wheelchair, got in line, and when got to the front of the line, the bus operator decided to wave other people in line before me. And when I protested, he said, "You should have been here first." I said, "Well, I don't think that the rule it means that I have to be here first." And he then even allowed other people to board. I filed a complaint with the MBTA, spoke with Jennifer on email whether this should be forwarded to the Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. I have no idea if she pursued that. And another thing, Jennifer, as I hear a lot of being passed on about how buses, these shuttle buses are ADA compliant. Well, if a state access law trumps the ADA, it's stronger than the ADA. I'm not sure about ADA compliancy, if that actually is stronger than state 521 CMR. So I would like you to research to see if this is so. Because if state law, which is 521 CMR, trumps the ADA, it has precedent. Please.
Thank you, Don.
And beyond that, I'm happy, I'm unhappy. And I get on buses frequently with my wheelchair, and I'll ask for the seatbelt. Most operators don't know how to use the seatbelt properly. I get on buses with accessibility equipment that it's not working or not there, or securements. Now, what part of the settlement states, Jennifer, that accessibility equipment on buses should be in working order?
Don, I'm going to let Jennifer answer if she has a response, and then we're going to move on, okay?
Oh yeah, well, yes, I'd like an answer for that, because frequently accessibility equipment doesn't work on buses. And I brought this up to Taramati, who brought this up to Laura. We had a meeting about this.
Yep.
Thanks, Don.
So I have buses, I board buses without securements. on the buses for certain spots.
Mhm.
The stop alert button on buses doesn't always work, etc. And I'm angry.
No, understandable. Thank you, Don. It is good to see you. I was feeling lonely that I didn't have any questions, so I'm glad. I'm so glad for your questions.
Oh,
We did
thank you,
receive your.
Jennifer.
You're welcome. We did receive your complaint.
And what's the
As
Master Chief making you for dinner?
um, thank you for that question too. So as you know, Lisa and I as a team review all the accessibility complaints, and we really, really sincerely do appreciate every time you can tell us the vehicle number, the route, the direction of travel.
Well,
You're
thank you.
no, you're great at that. And we take the appropriate corrective action. Quite often, the operators will go back for retraining if they're not properly doing what they should be doing, because that is really important to us. That's what we're
Well,
here for, right?
Well,
Or
what's your
more, or more.
sorry for interrupting. What's your opinion about the operator of that bus in Quincy that decided to tell me I should have been there first, allowed other people to board before me, even though I was in line?
Yes, we are in the process of investigating that, and I'm sorry that that happened to you.
And thank you.
Thanks,
And
Don.
what is the Master Chief making you for dinner?
I'm gonna let Michelle Styler take over.
Thanks,
I
Don.
just wanted to say thank you also to Jean Fox for the presentation. Jean, Shayna, and Nancy have included SWA in every step of the way of South Coast Rail. We really appreciate their collaboration and partnership. Our team, Chris Hart, Laura, Rob, myself, we're all involved, and thank you for prioritizing accessibility.
Thank
To you and
you,
your
and
team, Jean.
thank
Thank
you
you.
for all of your support for what we're doing too.
Thank you all.
Mm.
So we can head to the next slide. Great. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Styler, the Chief of Paratransit Services, to give some ride updates.
Okay, are we good to go? All right, thank you. If we can go to the first slide. Thank you everyone for joining, and it's nice to see some of you again after the board meeting this morning. The service updates for March are trending well. For March, we provided 143,000 plus trips, which was an increase from the prior month of 14,000. A look back to March of 2023, we are up by almost 20,000 trips. If we could go to the next slide. There we go. The ridership breakout by dedicated service provider is 75,584. On-demand trips provided by Flex are 50,547. And the integrated trips are the trips that we shift from our dedicated service providers to our Flex providers were 14,108. You go to the next slide. This is again another indicator of improved performance from the prior month. On-time performance is trending up. The last 2 months were 90%. March was 91%. And the trip pickups greater than 120 minutes dropped down to the lowest level since the start of the pandemic. I believe the total number was actually 3. That's correct. If we can go to the next slide. The call center performance continues to improve as well. Some of the new metrics that we use to measure performance are a requirement for 85% of the calls to be answered within 120 seconds, and we have achieved that the last few months. We addressed over 91,000 calls. And the actual percentage for March was 91.5% answered within 2 minutes. We go to the next slide. We also track complaints, and we are taking a deeper dive into those complaints. Megan and her new staff member, not so new after a couple of months anyway, Marika, are taking a deeper dive into these complaints. And I've also been working with users as well on how to fully address those complaints. We see 2.36 complaints per 1,000 trips for the month of March, which again is down since the summer and spring. Overall, we saw 212 complaints, 37 commendations, and 262 inquiries. If we go to the next slide. You hear me speak about staffing up. We have cycled through a few vacancies. We have 10 remaining vacancies. We have 3 positions right now that we're in the process of concluding. Those are the Director of Performance and Process Improvement, Operations Manager, and Contract Administrator. And we are hoping to have been fully staffed by June of this year. And I believe this is the last slide, if we can go one more. Okay, it may be a good time to speak to some of what was discussed at the board meeting today. We addressed our preparation to introduce not just the Low Income Fares Initiative, but the fact that we're also adding premium service to low income fares. We have increased our driver target by 15%. We anticipate, based on the recent increase in driver wages and reported applicants, that we can hit our target of 692 drivers by October of 2024, which would have us fully staffed. Let's see. I think that's all the updates I have, but I'd like to open to any questions.
Great. Next slide, please. So now we will do the question and comment period for the ride. To indicate that you have a question, please use the Zoom's raise hand feature located at the bottom of the screen. When you raise your hand, it will alert that you'd like to speak. The moderator will unmute attendees to ask questions in the order that they raise their hands. Again, to speak, click reactions, then raise hand. On the keyboard, you can click the Alt and Y keys. And if you're calling in, you can press *9 to raise hand or *6 to unmute. And since Don Summerfield was last time, go ahead first this time.
Michelle, I want to sincerely apologize for what I said at the AVA celebration, and I'm very, very sorry.
Well, thank you, Don. I don't mind some constructive criticism and appreciate you reaching out. Feel free to reach out anytime.
It was more than constructive criticism. It was very threatening, actually.
Thank you, Don.
And thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Michelle? Debbie Malone, go for it.
Okay, so I just have a quick question. What is the plan for dealing with the on time, not on time being late, but on time being excessively early? Because most of my trips are excessively early, and I just want to know what's being done, basically.
Sure. I can speak to that, absolutely. I have shared in prior sessions that we are not building schedules the most efficiently because of the driver shortage. We expect that a combination of increased drivers and software, pending software award to allow for more frequent optimization of scheduling, you will begin to see improvements.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
And thank you for asking.
Thanks, Debbie. Debbie number 2, go ahead. Debbie Weathers, you can unmute whenever you're ready. Debbie Weathers, are you there? You are muted at the moment.
Am I still muted?
Not anymore.
Okay. I have a question. Those complaints they say it's lower, is that because a lot of people aren't complaining anymore because they're not getting any answers?
I don't think that's the case because everything that comes in through us is investigated and customers do receive responses. We recognize that some can fall through the cracks. But I had said earlier, we're doing a deeper dive into how we can ensure that we track everything that comes through. And we're looking at some quality control to ensure everyone's answers are fully responded to. But I don't think that's the case. Generally, we see a decline in complaints because we have seen improvements at the call center the whole time, which I'm not certain I spoke to in the presentation, but it's now consistently been below a minute. And I expect that that's what some of the complaints that may have dropped off.
Well, most of the stuff that's been happening to me is still happening, so that's why I'm asking. And I know a lot of people, they said they don't even call in anymore because they don't get answers.
I won't say we've turned a corner, but we are seeing some positive progress, and we are hopeful that that driver wage increase, one of the things that we had spoken to in this morning's board meeting is a comparison of applicants in the first 2 weeks of April 2023 versus 2024. I believe the number was almost 300 more applicants to be drivers for the ride. So again, it looks like we're trending in a positive direction to be fully staffed, where you will see those improvements.
Okay, because several times they've had add-ons, and add-ons are not really the problem. They're only a problem when you're on time and then they go opposite direction to go get somebody else that's an add-on and make you late for your appointment. That's happened to me several times. Once I had to go to surgery too. That's happened to me several times. And I don't understand that.
No, I was going to say, I absolutely hear you and understand. Some of those issues are same-day changes, but not just same-day changes with driver call-outs or customer no-shows or late pickups or customers that may need additional time or traffic. But all of what is driving this on-time performance right now is a driver shortage, that we are not necessarily combining trips in the most efficient manner because of the driver shortage.
Thanks, Debbie.
Okay.
Debbie, one more thing that I can speak to is we have 10 more drivers in the month of April already than we had in March, which is a very positive direction, and we haven't seen that for months.
Okay. I hope so. And I hope the trainers are training them right.
Thanks,
Some
Debbie.
of the stuff they do isn't their fault. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Debbie Malone, I'm just going to ask Joanne to go first since she didn't have a chance to speak yet. Go ahead, Joanne.
Hi, I just wanted to reinforce what I think was the first Debbie said. Being dropped off early is just it can be very serious. And, quite frequently places aren't open when people are dropped off early. And there were just I only have two examples. The first one was when I had to go recertify for my ride, for the ride, and went over to Mass Avenue to the mobility center. I was dropped off at the mobility center before it opened, and I know that's not supposed to happen.
No, it's not.
I know it's part of the rules, but I was there like a half hour, 45 minutes before it opened, and that's not the friendliest little neighborhood in the world.
Joanne, can I ask real quickly when that occurred? Was that something recent?
It was within the last year. I had to recertify.
Okay, thank you.
This isn't good. I don't like this neighborhood. I don't like this parking lot. This is no fun. Believe me, but the most recent one, I was picked up before 6:15 for a 9:50 appointment at Brigham and Women's. And I assumed that dispatch had other people that were going to be in this ride with me. I was the only one.
I hear
Personally,
you.
I'm not a 6:15 in the morning kind of person, but I got to the Brigham like over 2 hours before my appointment.
I hear you, Joanne, and I
Okay.
understand that it happens.
Yeah, so that's all I had to say. I just
Thanks,
wanted to
Joanne.
reinforce really that getting there early ain't so much fun either.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I can assure you that we track that as well. You know, baby steps, we're moving in a positive direction. We're really hopeful that we've seen those improvements. We invested in the call center. We saw significant improvements. Now we've invested in drivers and driver wages. And our service providers are putting a lot of effort into engaging with the drivers, providing for two-way communications with their staff. I do think that you are going to start to see more improvements. I don't think, I know.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Joanne.
I'm counting on you guys. All right. Bye.
Keep reaching out, Joanne, please.
Oh, you can't get rid of me.
I wouldn't want to.
Okay.
I'm gonna call on Tom next since he didn't speak yet. Go ahead, Tom.
Is it Tom Gilbert?
It
Yeah,
is.
Hey, Michelle.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, I have a question that I'm asking for my friend Mike, so I can relay the question back to him. He's been with the ride for many years now, and he knows other people that have 40 flex rides on their ride accounts, but he still only has 10. So I was wondering if you had like some kind of a general ballpark figure, like how often you have to take that to actually get to get the rides added on, to get more flex rides added on. Like what's I'm not asking for an exact, but just a general. How often would you need to take it to actually up the flex rides?
There isn't an exact formula, but
Right.
staff does take a look at the user's prior history to make a determination about how many trips, and
Yeah.
the trip caps are reevaluated twice a year. But if he's looking for a little bit more information, we could, if you want to share his contact information or ask him to call in, I'd be happy to have somebody from RideFlex speak directly with him.
Oh, okay. So what do you have a number I could give to him to?
You can contact the Ride.
I have
Thank
his
you.
email, so I'll connect
Oh,
them,
okay.
Tom.
Okay.
Okay, because that was just a general that he's been he's been asking me, and I also wanted to comment that is pretty informative to today to find that there were 13 vacancies and now it's down to 10 vacancies. So now I understand why things have been the way they've been. I guess if you don't have people to fill in the positions, I guess makes people kind of stuck. I guess so. I can tell that to him too. I can tell him that as well. So.
Well, thank you, Tom. What I should share now is a great time, and I don't do it often enough. Kudos to the team. It's a very, very small team who work well together collaboratively, and everyone is quick to lend a hand to anybody else on the team when support is needed. They give up a lot of their own personal time and support others. So without that team, we wouldn't be here, but I'm looking to relieve them so they can focus on their core duties. But again, it's a real solid team that I'm incredibly proud to be a part of.
Because my friend gets really frustrated and aggravated with it, and I tell him, Mike, I mean, Michelle's trying the best she can, but this really informs me about what's been going on and the stress everybody's been under and everything. So I'll relay that back to him that, hey, Mike, it's just, if you have low staffing and drivers' wages need to be up to everything, this is what happens. So,
Thanks,
but
Tom.
thanks for informing me on that. Thanks to both. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. So I'm hopeful. I had shared that we'll have 3 additional jobs, at least offers out in the upcoming weeks. A few more jobs that post, but again, once we get into the position, hopefully by the close of June, that will be fully staffed.
Great. Thank you very much. Jerry, I'm going to call on you next. Debbie's, I see you both.
Great, thank you so much, Michelle, for your presentation, and I was able to listen into most of the board meeting this morning, and I appreciate your presentation this morning as well. And sorry I couldn't be there this morning to celebrate the accomplishments of SWA and the improvements that OTA is making as well. I'll just ask this in a general way as kind of a reminder. Is your pickup time that you're given the night before, is that the time that's used to calculate the on-time performance, Michelle?
You know what, Jerry? That's a good question. And I'm sorry, I don't want to give you a firm response, but I can promise to email tomorrow a firm response. I want to be certain. We were just reviewing our on-time performance calculations this morning. So I want to be certain I get that right. I can email you a response tomorrow morning when I return to the office.
Yeah, that would be fine. And I had a specific example that I wanted to either share in a complaint or at one of our other meetings, but I deleted the text chain in error. So the next time I encounter something with trip times, I'll certainly share those with you and the team as well. I just wanted to ask or see if you knew whether that was what is used for on-time performance, and I'll appreciate the follow-up. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jerry.
Nora, go ahead.
Hi, Michelle. Nora Nagel here. I had an interesting experience this weekend that brought up a couple of concerns for me. I took 2 rides on Saturday, and unusually, I didn't get a call the night before telling me when it was scheduled, didn't get a text. So I went to the track online website and looked up the expected arrival times. And you often get texts and calls saying your ride is estimated to arrive within, 30 minutes, or your driver is in your area, blah, blah, blah. Didn't get any of those calls or texts for either one of the 2 rides on Saturday. But for the first one, since I hadn't received them, I called the track number and spoke to an operator and I called at the time that the ride was scheduled to arrive. And I was told the driver has been sitting outside your house for over a half an hour, and they just called in to request that you be called a no-show.
Mhm.
While I was on the phone with track, I got a call waiting went off, and it was a call from a dispatcher telling me the same thing, that the driver had been outside for over a half an hour. Never made any attempt to come to my door. This person was out on the street. I did go outside, met the driver. He was on time, apparently, as Joanne was saying, he was very, very early. So on my ride home, I was very concerned that I wasn't getting these calls or texts. So, asked somebody who could see what was going on to pay attention. That ride also on time, no issues with either of the drivers. But I called track to report my concern that the automated notifications, that system didn't appear to be working.
Mhm.
They checked my phone number, it was fine. And the person that I was speaking to kept telling me, well, it's not, you shouldn't rely on those automated texts and calls. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. And it was just so bizarre. I kept trying to explain, I'm not complaining about the drivers. I'm not complaining about the ride. I'm asking you to see if there is possibly a failure in your automated notification system. And I don't think that this complaint or concern was ever recorded. And he just basically kept telling me it was my responsibility and that, you know, I shouldn't even bother with the automated calls or texts. So was there an outage with that system over the weekend?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can certainly look into it because that's the initial thought was we often get when someone's voicemail is full or they've
No.
changed phone numbers, but clearly that's not the case here.
Right.
I can explore that with the call center. We can seek to verify that the calls that went out indeed did go out. On top of that, I'm concerned and I'm sorry to hear of your interaction with the track staff member. And I think I have enough information that we can have that call pulled as well, because it sounds like an opportunity to provide some refresher training.
Yeah, that would have been
Perhaps-
Saturday evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nora.
I will investigate. Thank you.
Thanks.
I also experienced the same thing. I did. Jennifer Smith Workman, sorry.
Was it on the same day, Jennifer?
I believe it was
Okay.
on a Saturday.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Nora.
Okay, yes, thank you.
All right, back to Debbie Malone.
Oh, well, thank you. I forgot to mention something when I spoke before. I was denied a Flex Uber ride twice in a row. The third person finally picked me up because of my service dog. So that happened just the other day. So I did file a complaint with Uber, and then I filed a complaint with the RTA, you know, and then, but it's just so time consuming and so, I don't know, and I understand the need for it, but can we do something to get people who don't know to file a complaint both with Uber and the MBTA? Like, can we put something out there like a letter or let people know that please do both? Because if you guys don't get the information, you don't know what's really happening out there. You know what I mean? But so I understand that.
Hear you. Okay. I will speak
I
with
understand that.
our
Are you
Flex
there?
and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, there you are.
I spoke over you a little bit. You weren't done.
Did it stop?
Nope.
Listening to-
We heard you, Debbie.
Oh, good,
Okay.
because my phone did some funny things. All right,
Okay,
so I just want to
Debbie.
know, can we do something about it? Because people don't know, but we need to know that these service dog denials are really happening. You know, that's unreasonable to have to wait till the third ride to be picked up.
I agree 100%. That's absolutely not supposed to happen. I will speak to both our comms and our RideFlex team to see about messaging information.
That would be good. Yeah, so people know to do both.
Right, right. Thank you, Debbie.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've addressed this in past RTAG meetings before. And something that we've been advocating for is having some sort of streamlined process because it's very tiresome and time consuming to complain to both Uber or Lyft and the MBTA. So that's something we'll continue to have a conversation about, is whether there can be some streamlined process so that riders, especially on RideFlex, can just send in one complaint so that both parties can get notice of
Right.
that complaint.
Yes. That would
And
be good.
we've heard that before, and we're certainly willing to engage in further discussion on this.
Good.
Thanks, Debbie.
I'd be happy to be part of it.
Thank you. Debbie Weathers.
Okay.
Okay, I had a question having to do with the lift also. Is there
Lyft?
any way that we can get them to come to one of these meetings, one of the regular RTAG meetings, and hear our complaints? Because she's right, there's certain things that Lyft does. Like the other day, I had a Lyft ride come for me, and he parked like 4 houses down. So I walked 4 houses.
Debbie, I
Hello?
think it's cutting out, Debbie. We're not able to hear you.
I think we have the general idea, Debbie, if you can hear us, about what you're asking for, which is how to voice those complaints. And I do believe that in the session that RTAG hosted, we have some points of contact. And internally, I've shared that our team meets weekly with representatives from both Uber and Lyft.
Okay,
So-
but what happened to me wasn't safe at all. Because I asked him the question, he got an attitude, and I had opened the car door, and then he told me to put my bag in the back. So I went to the trunk and I popped the hood, and he drove off with the hood open and the door open, and me standing there.
Debbie, can I, and I don't want to ask too much personal details here, but was this recent? Did you submit
Yeah,
a
this was
complaint?
recent. This was
Recent?
recent. Yep.
Did you submit a complaint? Do we have something on file that we can investigate?
I sent how you talk to the Lyft people
Mhm.
on my phone, but I didn't know you could send one to MBTA too.
Was
You
this
send them to
a,
both. That's the way I'm trying to figure out how to do this, because
Was
I
this-
sent it to the Lyft people because it said what I told them what happened.
was this a trip that you booked yourself, or was
Yeah.
this okay?
Yep, it was one I booked myself.
This is Debbie Weathers. Self-booked. Okay, I'm just,
Thank you for
Okay.
sharing, Debbie.
thank you. Did I see another hand?
And is there anybody else who wants to ask a question to Michelle about the ride before we move on?
I just have a really quick statement, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
Hey, this is Susie Backstrom again, and I just wanted to thank you guys for issuing ride account numbers to folks before doing the screening for them, so that they are so that they it encourages them to stay focused and to look at whether or not they got the ride, and then as soon as they get the ride to access all the other stuff that's available through that. I really appreciate the new system. It's a heck of a deal, and my consumers are really happy, and I'm really happy when I see folks utilizing paratransit who definitely need it, who just were missing out on that one thing.
Thank you, Susie. Good to end on a high note.
I appreciate that, definitely. Do you hear that, team? Thank you, Susie. I know I have a couple of follow-ups. Kat, we are connecting early next week. What I'd like to do is, Jerry, I know I promised you a response tomorrow, but Kat, in addition to what we're speaking with, I'd like to kind of step through some of these concerns and make sure that
Sounds
I've
good.
captured everything.
Will do. Great. Thank
Okay.
you so much, everyone. We can just go to our final slide. This is just our thank you slide. Our next general membership meeting will be on Thursday, May 23rd from 5:30 to 7:30. So again, it will be an evening meeting, not a 3 p.m. meeting. We will drop the link in the chat to sign up for the RTAG newsletters. And if you come across any issues related to what we spoke about today, or anything related to service animal refusals, orange line gaps, third-party shuttle diversions, bike lanes, snow removal, any of those issues that we've talked about in the past, feel free to reach out to me or RTAG, and we will continue to have these conversations. But thank you for being such wonderful advocates, and we will see you next month.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank
Good evening, all.
you. Good
Have a
night.
good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great night.